Hey y'all, what's going on? Good morning. This is your man Sabir Alim, and welcome to Daddy's Right Here Live. I thank you, as always, for tuning in. Welcome to any new viewers. Welcome to all of those repeat persons who come time after time, Sunday mornings, Wednesday nights, blog talk radio. Every function that I've ever had, so many people have joined in. And they could be doing anything else. You could be doing anything else on those days, but you're sitting and you're listening to me. So last week, our conversation was about children being underprepared and overexposed to sexual content. Excuse me. And we looked at some examples of what that content looks like, some of the common things that, we see every day. And, they grow up fast. And the question is always asked when a child does something of a sexualized nature, where did you learn that from? Who did you see doing that? But here we are sitting right in front of the television, watching our favorite sitcom, and there it is happening right before you. But you often miss that part. You miss what it is that children are paying attention to when they watch television, when they're reacting. You don't see their reaction to things unless you hear them say something. You probably will just disregard it, even if you did hear them say something, because you just don't think that they think about sex. And when I did the previous shows on early childhood sexual development, you learned more. And if you didn't get a chance to catch those shows, I think it was about 3 of them, right after this show, please go and check it out. Children know far more than we give them credit for knowing. Far more. And a lot of that has more to do with our own lack of knowledge about our own development as human beings. We see life through a whole different lens. We see achievements through a whole different lens. We see success through a whole different lens. We see personal growth and development of ourselves through a whole different lens. That's why it's so easy for other human beings to latch on to the deficiencies, the shortcomings, the deficits of another person. That's why it's so easy. Because there's an innate connection between human beings. For a reason, obviously. We keep trying to make ourselves so separate from one another, but we came from 2. Adam and Eve. That's where we came from. We all came from that. We're all in connection with one another. We may not all be in alignment with the Creator, but we're all connected. And we're connected to Him, first and foremost. Right? But so some of the things that we were looking at in the article on psychology today was children as young as 8 and 9 are coming across sexually explicit material on the internet and in other media. Although research is just beginning to assess the potential damage, there is reason to believe that early exposure to sexual content may have the following undesirable effects. And we started with early sex. We talked about the impacts of early sex and why teens are more likely to have sex after being exposed to sexual content in the media. So what they were looking at, it was like teens who were not exposed to sexual content in the media were less likely to have sex early on. And they found that most of them that were exposed as teens early on would eventually, within a 2-year period of time, engage in sexual activity, right? It says it here. Media messages normalize early sexual experimentation and portray sex as casual. Real important to understand. Unprotected and consequence-free, encouraging sexual activity long before children are emotionally, socially, or intellectually ready. Yeah. Yeah, there's a whole change that comes about within the body, within the mind, the entire psyche of that child having sex at an early age. Because they've been convinced in so many ways that age ain't nothing but a number. Sound familiar? So when we start looking at the behaviors that come along after your teen has had sex, right? We call it smelling yourself. They begin to act differently, right? Because once that seal, that unscathed part of self, that innocence, once that has been violated, once it has been violated, once that line has been crossed, it alters the normal sexual development, the normal psychosexual development of the human being. It changes everything. Right? But even before that, the cycle of curiosity is elevated because it's already innate. Sexuality is already there. It's already going somewhere within the makeup of the person, for lack of a better interpretation, but it's there. It's a driving force that's always there. Again, remembering Adam and Eve didn't know each other, right? They came upon one another by God's blessing, by his grace and mercy, right? So here we are. This is your wife. It wasn't a matter of, do you have a job? Do you have a Bentley, a Benz, or a Beamer? Right? Do you have a big home? What do you have? You got diamonds and pearls? No, it wasn't none of that. None of that was necessary. Because again, it goes back to the purpose of man and woman were to procreate. So something has to already be in existence within the individual in order for that to happen. So it didn't matter whether, any of those things were present. Let's get it in. And this is what we find happening if you look at the research and you look at what the studies are suggesting about having sex at an early age. It says it. Sex is portrayed as casual. It's casual. Yo, let's go get some pizza. Maybe after we can, kind of do, a couple doggy styles, maybe some cowgirl kind of, it's casual, and it's part of conversation that has no boundaries. And when you talk about it in the sense of no boundaries, then it's not going to be any sense of responsibility to it. And it says that as well. Children are emotionally, socially, or intellectually, they're not ready. They're not ready at that stage. They're just not ready. But they go into it. And they'll talk about it. We talk about it. You know, my first experience, I talked about it. I did. You know, guys get together and we talk about it. Some of us were actually having sex and some of us were still talking about having sex, but it was a conversation. It was really a conversation. But just like anything else, after the first one, you start going after it. If it was not an assault, if it was not an assault, because as painful and difficult as the first act typically is for both, awkward, emotionally, you know, challenging. There's a whole lot of things come along with that, but you try it again, because once you've had it the first time, you go after it, then you keep getting it because it's the idea of it. It's just an idea. It has no responsibility attached to it at all. It's just the idea of I'm having sex. But then the other aspect of it, when you look at the socially ready aspect of it, is that, okay, so now that you've had sex and everybody knows that you've had sex, what does that mean? And for boys and girls, it means something different. It means something different. When boys are sexually active, how do girls see him? When girls are sexually active, how do boys see her? Then how does society as a whole see them both? Boys get the attaboy kind of thing. My man, yeah. Girls get looked down upon. They get talked to differently. They got to get dealt with differently. They start having the nonsense gravitating towards them by those who are experienced and those who are inexperienced. So it's a whole lot of things attached to both socially. And in a day and age where you can just take a picture of yourself and send it directly to somebody else, it's happened more frequently. In a day where you can just get a video and you can put it online, right, and get likes, you can go anywhere with social media right now and never leave your home. Never leave your home. You have children sitting in their bedrooms, children going in the bathroom, supposed to be taking showers, twerking and jerking and everything else going on in the bathroom live. Live. Yeah, live. There's plenty of outlets now where you can do all those kinds of things and you can sell that footage and get paid. So I don't have to go sell drugs anymore. I can just sell footage of myself online. And you're downstairs, watching television. Hollow says, "Johnny, everything okay up there?" "Yeah, Ma. We studying. We almost done." And that's one of those reality videos where the children are upstairs studying. They have their friends up there with them studying, the friends that you love and trust so dearly and honestly love them to death. And they're upstairs making videos because they've been exposed to content online. And because it's so casual, the separation, differentiation between the realities of what early childhood sex bring along, right, and what you have created in your mind as far as the casual aspects of it. Because if they only see it as casual, right, then when the reality shows up, other things begin to present, and that's where the intellectually and emotionally stuff starts really happening for them, because they try to piece it together and it becomes hard. And this is not something that you can intellectualize. And the intellectual aspect comes in the thought that it's okay, it's casual. We can just do this, we can just do that. I mean, that's, again, it's all of us. We have it ingrained within us. We all do. And we make it such a dirty thing, which is, again, goes back to my videos on understanding childhood sexuality. We treat it as being such a dirty, horrid thing when it's a natural thing that we do. And you just have to learn how to curb it, to manage it, to help channel it in another area. So let me see. We stopped. Well, listen. I think we stopped at the end of that portion talking about early sex, and we were going to go into high risk sex. So let's go into that. And again, if you're just tuning in, today's show is part 2 of overexposed and underprepared in terms of the effects of early exposure to sexual content. And again, the article was written by Carolyn Ross, MD, M.P.H. And it's a really good article. So let's go. High risk sex. The earlier a child is exposed to sexual content and begins having sex, the likelier they are to engage in high risk sex. Research shows that children who have sex by age 13 are more likely to have multiple sexual partners, engage in frequent intercourse, have unprotected sex, and use drugs or alcohol before sex. In a study by researcher Dr. Jennings Bryant, more than 66% of boys and 40% of girls reported wanting to try some of the sexual behaviors they saw in the media. And by high school, many had done so, which is parenthesized, which increases the risk of sexually transmitted diseases and unwanted pregnancies. So if you believe that it's just something to do, that it's casual, right? As a child, you don't see anything wrong with it because everything you see around you is sex, 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 sex. You see the little things that go on between mom and dad. Dad, squeezing the booty while she's, at the counter washing the dishes, or they kiss and they pull each other close, and you see the dynamics between how they're talking and kissing and all of those things. And you hear the sounds. I can't just say at night, but through the course of the day when the door is closed. All of those things start connecting for the teen. They see the videos, the music videos, and they watch. Again, you see this kind of behavior on sitcoms. It's all about sex. All about sex. So when you look at having casual sex and you look at the multiple partners, if you're following anything in the news, you'll find that a lot of teens have been found to be getting treated for chlamydia. You'll find that there are more teens having other sexually transmitted diseases because of being so casual, right? Not having the understanding of how you protect yourself. And they hear the stories about condoms. But I remember when the whole just say no to drugs thing came out, and they found that just saying no wasn't enough. It's the same here, that when you think that is something to do and that you can have people like you more, or you're good and you like having the label of, well, I'm good at performing this particular sex act. I can do this and I can do that. And when you're in that mindset, you just kind of go buck wild. You turn it up. You start going after everything, anything, not realizing that you are really going after any and everything because you're not thinking in the sense of safety. But it also talks about the use of drugs or alcohol and using those things before having sex before having sex, which again, when you start looking at the emotional ramifications of having casual sex, and then you were high before it all took place, and then you have to find yourself facing what it is that you did and who you did it with, right? Because you were drunk or because you were high off of something and you had sex. Again, you're faced with the reality of your life as it's going to be, because you are creating your own destiny when you continue on and on and on with that kind of behavior. You get a name, you get stigmatized. And whether it's the jock who is getting all these girls and, you know, he's like Mr. Popular, later in life, he too is affected as an adult because he carries that behavior into adulthood, and it has very serious consequences on any relationships, be them potential relationships or active relationships. The behavior is something that is very difficult to change until you see the true hurt and the true nature of what it is that you're doing. So it says that 60% of boys and 40% of girls reported wanting to try some of the sexual behaviors. Yeah. 60% of boys. Not earth-shattering in terms of understanding that the number is higher for boys than it is girls. Again, going back to early childhood development, little boys have that little thing that's always standing up from time to time on its own. And when it's touched, it reacts. And there's something that reacts on the inside. So the boy, you know, boys fondling themselves and playing with themselves is something that obviously is going to put that active percentage higher. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. So if you're a boy or if you're a male, you understand that if your penis gets hard, you find some relief for it, and we found that touching it gives us relief. Right, long before the understanding of masturbation came into play, it was already an act that was happening, but through a process of how do I say, being active, you learn how to relieve yourself. Other than that, it's just a touch. Even though it's relieving, it is not giving you that release. And over time, so that's easy for males. That's very easy for males. Right? When you see men always sitting down with their hand in their pants, well, why are you always doing that? Well, you know, it's because as a child, watch little boys. Little boys do the same thing. They be drinking a bottle or they have their thumb in their mouth when they sleep, and you start finding that their hand is usually between their legs. Yeah, it's like a Linus blanket of a sort. There's some joy there. There's some relief there. So 66%, you know, is a high number, but when you start factoring in drugs and alcohol, and then you're also looking at the risk of sexually transmitted diseases and unwanted pregnancies, that becomes a whole different discussion to be had. So let's look at sex, love, and relationship addictions, because again, exposure to early sexual content, because this is just being exposed to content. See, we're not even talking about them sitting on Uncle James's lap or all snuggled up in Aunt Mary's bosom. We're not even talking about that, because that behavior comes along after exposure to content, because you can feel comfortable in your mother's bosom. And this is one of the things that people had so much issue with Freud about, because the child doesn't know The child may know mommy, daddy, but the child doesn't know about the boundary. The child has to be taught the boundary between how you touch mommy and how you touch daddy, and how mommy touches you and how daddy touches you. They have to learn that. They have to learn that. See, people don't want to understand the nature of why I'm so attracted to my mother as a little boy, unless I am shown those boundaries, right? And the boundaries are, again, shown in the content of your discussion with me, the content of what you do around me. The content is real important. So it wouldn't be unheard of for me as a little boy to be in love with my mother, to feel comfort in her bosom, to find joy in her body scent. After all, I was carried inside of her. And when I'm outside of her, yes, I'm going to normally bond with her. We're not talking about her bonding with me. What we're talking about at this point is the child's connection, because I talked about childhood behavior in boys and their sexual development and the relationship between the boy and his mother, and the same as such for the girl and her father. We have to be taught the boundary between the two. Other than that, just think for a minute what life would be like if your little girl or your little boy was always with you, and that you didn't cut them off at like 4 or 5 years old, 6 years old. Like you sleeping in the bed, but at some point in time, you're not going to be sleeping in the bed with a 9, a 10, 11, a 12-year-old boy next to you, right? It's you just, unless you have to do it in some moment or something, but you're not. You understand what I'm saying? Because then that changes, because it just ain't. So you establish the boundary. But just say for instance, if it did keep happening, just say for instance your 10-year-old boy, and you're the mother, is in the bed with you every night, right? And you know how some of us like to sleep, right? And if you want it doesn't matter though, because he's so close and he snuggles up to mommy at night. And his little penis gets hard, and he gets to, and you don't do anything about it. You just let him. What's going to happen with that relationship? And the same thing for a little girl who snuggles up to dad, who didn't get that boundary established, and she's in that. It's a natural thing. So you teach boundaries. You teach the understanding between this is mommy, this is daddy. No, we don't do no, and no. Right? It's just a reality. It's just a reality, right? And the same way when like we have family members who, I got some fine cousins, and I know a lot of us, we say, I got some cousins, man. Like, so if this cousin is first and second and third, fourth removed, then we good. But if they like the one right there, no, and you understand what I'm saying? So, we get taught those things along the way, that this is wrong, that's wrong, no. But especially when we're talking about parents. So to the article, not every child who is exposed to sexual content will struggle with a mental health disorder. Let me read that sentence again. Not every child who is exposed to sexual content will struggle with a mental health disorder. But research shows that early exposure to pornography is a risk factor for sex addictions. Sex addictions, not additions. I'm sorry. Well, additions come along because one is just not enough, but a factor for sex addictions and other intimacy disorders. Now, stay with me here. In one study of 932 sex addicts, 90% of men and 77% of women reported that pornography was a factor in their addiction. With the widespread availability of explicit material on the internet, these problems are becoming more prevalent and are surfacing at younger ages. Yeah. Yeah. See, one of the other things that you have to understand too is that the sex toy industry is a big business. It's a big business. There are dolls, lifelike latex dolls that stand about 6 feet tall, right? That do all kinds of special things. And with this whole artificial intelligence thing, right, that's going on, listen, Stepford Wives are right around the corner. Right around the corner. Because it's about sex. It's not about love. It's about sex. So when you look at sexual addictions, it says it, man, look, not every child who is exposed to sexual content will struggle with mental health disorder. But research shows that early exposure to pornography is a risk factor for sex addictions and other intimacy disorders. When you look at relationships today, and this is what I said earlier, when you look at relationships today and people keep asking the question of why is marriage not important? Why are relationships not lasting long term? So many terminating between 3 to 5 years because sex is so casual that you just want what you want when you want it. And when you're addicted, it doesn't matter who it's with. It's a feeling that I just need to feel. I just need to relieve myself. She looks good. He looks good. I'll bet you that thing is, oh, and then you go get it, right? And the thing about it is, just like the teens waking up the next day after being in a drunken stupor or then took some pills or smoked some weed and then slept with somebody from the crew or somebody's from the crew and wake up feeling so dirty. Imagine what that does to the psyche when you have folks who are addicted to sex. It's very harmful to the relationship because in many ways, if the sex between the partners is insufficient and the person doesn't have the ability to have dialogue about what their needs are, and or the other person, the other partner, does not have that same appetite for sex, then it's inevitable that they either part ways or that person who is sexually addicted will be going out there hitting something else. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. Therefore, again, I can guarantee you that there were never times, unless she was on her menses, that Eve told Adam no. Guaranteed. Because the purpose at that point was just for that. That was purpose. That was purpose. You understand what I'm saying? There's a difference between living life on purpose. Their responsibility was to procreate. That was their job. That was their obligation. That was the task ordained upon them by God. But when you are in a position whereas you are not given that task to have multiple partners and just be running around hitting everything, your task is to be with who? Your wife. But if you are conditioned to have casual contact, and now it's an ongoing thing because you've had all these partners as a child, That's all you're going to look for in your adult life. And what they studied here were, excuse me, 932 sex addicts. And there are how many people in the world? So 90% of men and 70% of women out of 932 reported that pornography was a factor in their addiction. So just think if that number was 1 million. I'm not a mathematical genius. As a matter of fact, I didn't do well at all with math in school. I had to take algebra twice before passing it with a D. But my point is, if you got 932, 90% of men reported that they were exposed to pornography before, and that's what went to their. So, and what did I tell you in the first show that I did on this topic? When you look at pornography in its definition, right? In its definition, and you look at, for me as a young male, a boy, looking at a Jet magazine, for me, that's pornography, right? Hold on now. It's a gateway because I want to see now. I want to see what's under that bathing suit top, the bathing suit bottom, and somewhere along the line, I've seen it. Either if I've seen it through somebody who I'm living in the home with, a family member who I'm living in the home with, be it a caretaker, be it a sibling, be it a relative, whoever, I'm seeing, I'm connecting the dots. Now I want to see hers in the Jet magazine. I can imagine it. I can see right through that thing. I got like X-ray vision. I can see through it. I'm telling you. And then as you continue to see things, now you're seeking out other material that's more, right? That's more in line with what I really want to see. And I'm going to go after, because that's what happens with the first one of anything. When you see it, you want more of it, right? It's like when you use drugs and alcohol, right? What you started off using isn't enough and you need more. So the chase is always on because it's always the first one. So the first time I opened up that magazine and I'm seeing that girl, I'm like, man, I got to see him naked. I'm telling you the truth, folks. I'm telling you the truth. Look at the reaction of a child who sees these images. Yeah. Even in bathing suits, right? Show males and females images of people in bathing suits, not even nude. Not even nude. It says here, with the widespread availability of explicit material. See, now we've gone from something as basic as, Mom's Mademoiselle magazine or Cosmopolitan magazine or Jet or Essence magazine. Now it's something more explicit that I've come across. Yeah. Online. All I got to type in is sex. Google it. It comes up. Hit images. Hit videos. It's all right there for me. Hit definition. Again, remember the intellect. My intellect at 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 years old is not even close to that of a responsible adult thinking. So therefore, I internalize it differently. I see it as something other than what it is that you're telling me as an adult, because when you're telling me about sex as an adult, you're telling me through your filters of experience or inexperience. But when I see it in Webster's or Wikipedia, I'm getting a definition that I, at that age, interpret because I haven't had that experience, because I don't know, or because I've had the experience and I'm trying to connect the dots between what I feel here, and down here. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm making that understanding through those things. So You find me in my room, laying on my stomach, laying on my back, with my knees up. Or you find me doing things and I'm always in the bed under the covers, or I'm in the shower in the bathroom for a long time, and you just think that I'm in there. Maybe it's just some other stuff, oh, they're young and they stay in the mirror and so on like that. But I'm sitting on the side of the tub, or I'm sitting on the toilet seat, or I'm not even sitting. I got something else going on, and then I got my music going, and I'm in there bouncing. Yeah. Yeah. Got to pay attention to what the kids are doing. Real rap. Because when we start exchanging sexters between one another, the game changes. Yeah, the game changes. Yeah. And if you are a girl and you're not that developed yet, what pictures would you be sending out first? Think about it. Think about it. Because if you really want to impress that little boy, what you gonna show him? Yeah. You're gonna take a selfie, but you're gonna show your butt first. And let me see the butt. And if you a little challenge there, you're gonna show him whatever you can below the waist, because you're just not that developed up here. But if you developed up here, then you start wearing like the t-shirt or something that's, little revealing of what's up here, because little Susie, Shaniqua, who sit next to you in class, right? They don't have none of that, but I got it. Yeah. And you trying to get him because that's who you want. And same way with the boys. What do the boys, really have to show if, they ain't up on their exercise game, and how much up you gonna be, as a kid, right? So that means that you have to show something that she wants. I'll show you mine if you show me yours, right? That's old school stuff. That's been around for a long time, And then you pass that note. Can I stand a chance, right? Because I need something, right? So can I stand a chance? And what does that chance mean? So let's talk about sexual violence. According to some studies, early exposure by age 14 to pornography and other explicit material may increase the risk of a child becoming a victim of sexual violence or acting out sexually against another child. And I talked about that too when I was talking about boys becoming more aggressive when they could not get sex, right? And even more aggressive once they did get sex. Because if you have gotten it in your mind, even without ejaculating, in your mind, you getting it. And if you're conditioned, like so many of us males have been conditioned to believe that that's your manhood. Forgetting about boyhood, this is your manhood. This is how you establish your manliness, by getting it. And then when you finally ejaculate, Lord, it's all hell. It really is. Because it's like it comes from up here, all in here and everything. And then it comes out there and you like, woo! And you still don't understand what took place, but you're going to go after it again. Remember, just like it's always the first one you go after. And if you don't get the first one or something close to the first one, very, very close to the first one, then here's where the multiple partners become in. Because I'm going to try that over here. That's why the multiple partner thing begins to increase, because you find that it's different with each one, and each one gives you a different feeling. So you go back to the other, then you find this is the rhythm. So I have all these partners, and I can do it like this and I can have this feeling and still get it, but then I'm still trying to get it with the other one who I started with first, but there's no connection between her and I other than the sex. Therefore, I don't understand why I'm not getting it like I was getting it before, because there's no connection. There's no connection. It's just sex. There's no feelings there for the person who's addicted. I'm talking about the addicted person, right? There's no feeling there. I'm addicted. No pun intended. Well, yeah, pun intended. Because you have to look at that's what happens. The male, because I'm talking about the male being addicted to sex is not going to be emotionally connected to the act. This is all about release. Now it goes from release of something within me to control, which causes more aggression, because now I done got it, you done gave it to me, and no, I don't hear no. And now I'm victimizing somebody who had shown me that they love me, that they care, and this is what I'm telling them, that, yo, I thought you loved me. And they keep giving of themselves because that is what they told the person, and this person has given their sick interpretation of love to this other person, and they treat them in this manner, but they give them sex. And then when the other person believes that if I'm giving him sex, and that means he loves me, and he keeps coming back to me, he's not going over there with her anymore. Well, he told me that he's not, even though he may very well be sneaking over there, because she don't know that he's addicted to sex, and therefore he's going to keep going and just having sex with every Mary, Jane, and Sue that he can come upon. And then I'm victimizing others, and now you have become a victim, because first, this is something you want to experiment with this person in doing. Yeah. And now this person is victimizing you. It's victimizing me because I want to say, no, I don't really want to do this. Right? Not like this, because he acts like I'm an object. She acts like I'm just an object. And when you're young and you're having sex, especially when you start having sex with somebody older and you're young, you see it as an obligation to just give. Yeah. It's no longer something that's valuable to you. You become desensitized to the value of your penis and your vagina. It's a matter of obligation. So you just do it just because you feel obligated to do it. Now doing it just doesn't, it's just something to do. And there's no value attached to it. So you be victimized over and over and over again, because you feel you've come to believe that that's what you are expected to do. So you don't even see yourself anymore in the light that you once did, because you want this person to stay with you, or you want to validate your womanhood or your manhood, even as a child. Even as a child. Yeah. Yeah. And this just adds to more and more of our societal conditions, because there's nothing else to do in so many communities but have sex. No community centers, no involvement with after school programming and all those things, no ongoing family interaction. Everybody's staying into the home. Everybody has to work. Some people have to work multiple jobs. It's just so hard. And it seems like when the child gets in trouble, that's when you make it your business to make sure this happens, that you don't put it off, that you stop attending all these other things and make family life more important than anything else. And of course, it doesn't apply to every family, but every family has to work. Therefore, the time being spent has to be structured where you can spend time with your child so you can hear what your child is going through, hear what your child's thinking is like, learn something about your child so you can help your child, because you're not going to stop your child from having sex. You're not going to stop it. That's why I was more than happy when my two of my daughter's mother called me and said, "Hey, what do you think about them going on birth control?" And they were like 15 and 16 years old. I said, "Well, yeah, absolutely, because they're having sex. They're having sex. It's the dumbest thing in the world to say, I don't want she don't need to be in no birth control. I need to know when she get birth control." No, you don't. You need to know that you've groomed her well enough to know that you don't need to be getting pregnant. Protect yourself. You should be happy about that. Not upset that you found out that she's getting pills to keep herself from getting pregnant. Right? I was, yeah, they need to be on pills. I'm not a fool. I'm not in denial. I was having sex at 13 with a 21, 22-year-old. Right? Yeah. I wish I would have known then what I know now, but that wasn't the case. So that's why I'm doing, these kind of shows, so you can start learning some things. Look at yourself. All you have to do is look at yourself. All you have to do is look at your own life. Just look at yourself. Look at your own life. Don't tell your child you know what it was like. You know what it was like to be 7 and having girlfriends and boyfriends. Okay, well, tell the whole story. How much did you like her? What did it really feel like when you wanted to kiss her? Just tell me that story. Don't sit there and tell me that story. I know what y'all do. And no, you know what you did. What did you do at that age? I'm not telling you to be so descriptive where you start putting stuff out there that your child start looking at you like, whoa. I'm saying help the child understand where they can possibly go if they keep going this route. But you got to create the environment. Because, when we start looking at rapes and how we have all these parties and stuff, and there's always drugs and alcohol involved, and you start, thinking it's just like all out orgy time, because a lot of times that's what happens in some of these spots. Like there's always that room. Y'all know it's always that room. It's always that one room. The dark room where yo, Mike, is that you? Yo, my bad. All right, hey, Kiki's that girl, stop being so loud. And, everybody trying to find a spot in there, because it was the blue light in the basement at one point in time. And then everybody started coming up with all these damn lights and stuff, and they messed all that up. So you got a room, but it was always that spot, man. If it was somebody's crib, it was, yo, y'all come on, man, you want to know something. So did nothing change. That still happens. That still happens. Real rap. And this is all, we're just talking about content establishing this kind of behavior. This is just being exposed to sexually explicit content. Yeah. So listen, it's a lot that we could cover in terms of the sexual violence that comes about as a result of the early exposure for kids to the content. It's when you can't think about it from this perspective as an adult, when you need to, feel that relief, what do you do? Just think for a minute. What do you do? Right? How many times have you made a booty call? Right? And how many times have you been alone and handled that? What does it feel like? What do you go through before that? How long does it take you? How long can you hold on before you have to feel that relief yourself? Right? Now, we're just talking about from an adult lens of how right? And if you do it every day, that's fine too. But still, you need to be able to think of how you as an adult manage your sexual release, how you feel about your sexuality, because how you feel about your own sexuality, if you're going to be honest about it and you have a conversation with um, a child and teaching them how to honestly discuss their sexuality, you have to first recognize and accept and acknowledge your own. And again, when you come upon a child who is engaging either alone or with another in some sexual behavior, the way you approach it is how the child is going to interpret that act. Are they going to find it dirty, disgusting, pathetic? You know, are they going? You got to look at all those things, because what you do in that instance is going to determine how I'm going to see this behavior. So if I get beat because you caught me doing this, what is that going to teach me? Is it going to teach me not to do that anymore? Or is it going to teach me just to hide it from you? Do you know why I was doing it? Do you know why I did it? No, it doesn't matter. You want to know from the child. So what made you want to do that? As opposed to, where did you learn that from? Because that's not important, right? Because because the idea of wanting to know where a child learns something from, right, is often you trying to find out who has taught my child this. And a lot of times they just see the things. Again, in all different means. Like I've seen some cartoons that like have a lot of adult content. You know, like The Simpsons is one of them. When The Simpsons came on, like Bart and Homer, they got some stuff going on. But then when you go back and you just look at things, you say, okay. But when you understand the psychosexual development of the human being, you begin to have a more in-depth understanding. But you have to be okay with your stuff. And even if you're not okay in the sense of like you don't still feel some guilt about it, or you're embarrassed about it, still think of it. You don't have to express that to the child. But if you are embarrassed by it, or if you have some guilt because of a particular behavior, find a way to help that child to not feel what you feel. Do that. How would you feel in that moment as an adult if you got caught with your hand in a place? Think about it. Or with someone else. What would you feel like in that moment? Just think about that. Hey, listen, we're at the hour, and as always, I greatly appreciate you tuning in. You could be doing anything else on a Sunday morning at 9 o'clock than sitting down listening to me. I appreciate the love. I appreciate the support. And please, 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 please use these videos. Invite people over, right? You have your peeps come over. Y'all can sit around, put it up on the screen, watch it, and have some interesting adult dialogue. We have to start having more open dialogue about things. Really do. So instead of just, getting drinks and coming over and dropping it like it's hot, right? Have some adult dialogue, right? These shows, there is age restriction. I think I put 13, right? But it's up to you. When you want your child to be able to watch a particular thing. But it shows on there that you can watch with different age groups. The use of profanity, You might every now and then hear me use something, but that's just not what I do as a professional. And I'm even though this is a personal show, I'm a professional because Daddy's Right Here is a nonprofit family services organization that seeks to decrease father absenteeism, and this is part of what Daddy's Right Here provides: education, educating, educating fathers on how to become physically and emotionally available to the lives of their children, right? Facing, embracing our responsibilities, right? If you say father, that means there's a mother, that means there's a child. So, this is our services are provided to families, and that's what this is. But the dialogue that you have with your child about everything, how you talk to the child, what you say to the child, right, influences and encourages their behavior. It shapes their behavior and their thoughts about you and the world around them. But as always, y'all have a great day. Thanks for the support, the love. Peace.